Try not be a cask bot. But that is in the vein of what I kind of wanted. Some spacing tools, something that whenever they come at you with a full frontal attack, you can stop it, you can dissuade it to some extent.
That's a really cool. Did you see the Rare Adam pin on his jacket? That was really cool. I like that.
I did not.
It was really cool.
I think I see it in the background.
Next time you see that, keep it. Look at that.
I see it in the background.
Cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I like that. Anyway,
one
sorry,
day
that.
the LPL English casters will get team merch. One day. Not chilling or anything. But getting into it now, we've seen a little bit of adaptation from FPX's draft priorities and how they wanted to approach this, but we've seen an all-in from RA. They got comfort, they got meta, and they had the execution in game number 1, and they are one step away from claiming their first series victory of Summer Split. While it is early, that's still something you want in a single round robin that is so condensed as it is this split. We're getting in game 2. Can the FPX Phoenix revive from the ashes of game number 1? Or is chemistry against them today? We'll find out very, very shortly, Nightmare.
Have I ever told you you have a love for the dramatic Rizal? Phoenix coming from the ashes very much needs to in this second game. It was a tough one in that game 1. Mistake around that Baron really sealed the deal. Game 2 will have their luck once again tested against RA.
Hopefully the Gyos give a nice ringing to the ear as we get into this one, especially as fans waking up, second series in the day. Should get a little bit louder from here on out as we do have a long day of games ahead of us. This is just our second. Maybe we have, maybe a 9-game day ahead of us. We'll see if FPX can turn this first one around to make that so as the Gyos come through. That trigger's already pulled, my friend, and LPX is going to burn that flash preemptively. Dredgelight's not going to connect. Nobody gets him. What? The shot goes wide. Is that a stormtrooper?
That's a weapons malfunction. Yeah, we're all okay here. Awkwardly walks away.
Everybody's fine.
Look, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to need a replay to figure out exactly what happened after the first flash came through. It was a flash over the knockup, then a hook, I think, trying to protect the first E out from the Rakan, and it just looks like a hook into the middle of nowhere. So, what do we go through here? Oh, is this the first play around the... Okay, right. So this is going to be the first play in here where we were wondering whether Care saw Leanne in that... I didn't see it on the minimap, although, to be honest, I wasn't exactly looking at the minimap at that point either, but going back into the replay down in the spot side now, what the heck happens here? So Feather, flash is over.
No!
I don't really know what else to say about that. That's just an oopsie. Yeah, that's a swing and a miss. Really on point about how they can test this fight around bot side.
Yeah,
hook misses,
this is a bad fight from RA. They were on a ward and everybody came. FPX did not shy away from that whatsoever. They still have a very healthy tower, and Assume was still clearing waves on the bottom side. So RA caught out by Hackers waiting over the wall. He will go through. They're going to pull the trigger here. Assume was on a ward there. They're going to re-engage with Feather. Jocho gets out of that one. That'll be the flash from Assume. Definitely revisited by Hacker and FPX.
Yeah, Stowe getting something for that Hex Flash. I'm not used to seeing the Hex Flash on the Ricard either. Sometimes you see a couple of different kind of runes taken alongside that kind of tree at that point. But still, FPX, it's 11 minutes in. They had a pretty awkward start against this Nocturne, and they haven't been altered just yet. If the Overforce hit, be careful with this. Leon could fly back in.
They're TPing. They're bringing Kara in here as well. They're going to TP Strive too. The fight's going to start off with Feather going down. They do get one back, and guess who gets excited? It's Assume. Strive stepping forward, but can't hit the chain route there, as well as another TP coming in for FPX. There's a Pop Blossom on Jojo, but they're going to leave Strive for death here. Care with the Spirit Rush, though, might be able to connect something. The cast comes out as Shala, who showed up in the nick of time, and Hacker gets a kill for FPX. It's 4-1 now, baby.
Both of these teams know that it is all about that Nocturne ult. So FPX say, well, if you've got that long-range semi-global ultimate, if we bring people there and start the fight ourselves, knowing that we can have numbers, it won't matter at the end of it. You can see the problems that LWX is going to have dealing with that Nocturne later into that game. Didn't really get to play out that fight. The Nocturne just solos them out very early into that fight. But Rare Atom are the ones to overstay, and it does mean that FPX managed to pick up some gold.
That's a problem for future LWX. We'll look at present LWX right now. As
Well, hang
Feather,
on. Well, if we go through like the ghost of like LWX past at this point, because we're going into the replay, this is what you're going to have to see an awful lot in this game. I'm so sorry to all the Felios players out there for the community learning that Nocturne is actually pretty good against your champion. A little bit. I actually quite enjoy it. I quite enjoy the champion. I particularly enjoy playing Felios and ARAM because no one can flank me and do stuff like this. Because as soon as, like, most of the time when someone is in melee range in a Felios, most of the time you're like, haha, I have my chakrams running. This is awesome. Just not Nocturne because he fears you for such a long time. You just don't get to.
Strive 2! The combo's just too neat, but LWX fires right back with that Inferno Moonlight Vigil, and now he's got the chakras, but he gets stopped by the Flame Chompers. It's an ADC tussle, and it's back and forth. Assume stepping up, Mega Death Rocket goes wide, and it is so close, but a 3 for 2 in favor of RA.
And the big factor in that one is that LWX actually gets to do damage. Now, FPX still lose the fight, they still lose 3 people, but that's a dangerous sign for Rare Atom if they can't land the killer blow onto the Aphelios before things get a little bit spicy in these team fights. Everfrost does actually buy a little bit of space at the start of that fight, a little bit of time, and you can see that if Leon goes in alone on this Nocturne, can't really get the huge amount of damage that you're looking for. LWX, as we said, actually manages to get a fight through this one as well. If you survive that initial engage, the damage is pretty significant, even with just the early game items built up.
The Counter-Strike Pop Blossom combo from the shadows is terrifying, maybe even more terrifying. And we have hovering over the Baron. FPX, they're like chopping up. They're like, do we go for it? Do we want the fight? The big purple orbs right there, guys. They look like
there we go.
That wants the fight as we're going in. Strive on the back with 3-man Pop Blossom, and Xiaoshu's coming in as well. FPX, man, you just gotta find an in, but there is a stone cold wall in front of you from Rare Atom.
And the Scottish players here live in the LPL. It's a bit of a tragedy for FPX again around the 20+ minute mark. They don't have a smite to deal with. They might have to try and go for, again, a very desperate contest.
This is a little bit desperate. They don't have many ways in here, but a little bit of damage, and it will be secured in the end by Leyen. FPX just trying to pull the trigger on something at this point. Xiaoshu's in the back of the pit. Feather has been Stokey.
Here we go.
And guess who he gets onto? It's LWX. He's goes golden, but Pop Blossom doesn't actually connect onto multiple members, but that root does! And it's immediate evisceration for the rest of FPX. A double kill for Assume, and Care's gonna not last very much longer. He does burn that flash, so he makes it out alive, but that'll be a 3rd dragon for RA, and they are just becoming clinical and picking apart FPX.
Even more gold beyond this point, but we're going to go right back to where Act 2 started. It was all about this mid lane push. The big ultimates come in, and that's a great angle chosen by Strive, actually. You don't get to kind of very cleanly disengage from that ultimate. You'd have to commit so many flashes and dashes over that wall. They don't manage to get out in time, and then it's just capitulation once again. It feels like as soon as that first fight goes down the hole from FPX, they lose the pace of the game a little bit. They lose themselves in the desperation, and this goes from bad to worse.
Feather gets the setup, and the volleyball spike comes through from the rest of Strive and RA. The fact that it wasn't even the Pop Blossom, but just the double root, it's just nuts to me. But it's now FPX on the front foot. The Moonlight Vigil comes through, but doesn't really connect there. They got so much CC to lock down Assume, though, and that is what this composition does.
Okay, so bit of a slap back from FPX. Importantly so, Assume caught out of position. No flash, no Gale Force for that play. Gets you at least take some gold back off of that huge Baron play, which came through. Chocho now looking maybe for something over that side with the Hex Flash. Calls off that play. Still has pocket of vision to work with. Of course, no AD carry yet on the table for Rare Atom. Can they make something of this?
No. A little bit of flash play going on here for Xiao. Trying to catch out Luyen, but won't find it now. Xiaoshu is looking for his own flank on the other side. You immediately see FPX is scared. Actually going to try to go in on Xiaoshu. Here's a big blossom. 3 members, and immediately 2 are gone. FPX has not been reborn. They've been turned into a cremation idol, and it's smashed into the ground. It is RA that has streamed forward. This has been at least now 1.5 weeks coming for RA. They've been so close to finishing out series. They've been so close to finding their first series win in Summer, and it looks like they're right on the precipice of it.
I didn't know you could make popcorn chicken out of a Phoenix, but Rare Adam are proving us wrong, teaching us something new today, and they're teaching us how they play around the crucial moments beyond the 20-minute mark, taking 2 inhibitors. It's not going to be the end of the game or the series just yet, but you feel it's about as good as done. It's a hell of a lot of gold for them. It's soul point for them. They get to reset. Nothing's getting taken off of the back of this play from FPX, and they've been left absolutely flailing as soon as they make the first mistake in these games.
26.5 minutes in. Base is busted open. Bot lane still there as a defensive structure for FPX. We're going to take a look back at this replay.
So, let's go back. I love these
minion mode.
T-Tours. And you just, this is what happens. Skynet's here. Come with me if you want to live. Well, maybe not to FPX, but the Terminator in himself, Strive, really making the most of this pick. You can absolutely see this extra skill set of the mind games you can play from this Nico being used to full extent by the LPL mid laners.
The thing is, you don't expect, you're eyeing up a 5-on-5. You're like, all right, I've got my man marks. I know where everybody is. Okay, we got this going. Then everybody starts using abilities as well, and this little tiny minion just walks up, and you're like, I wasn't expecting there to just be this little tiny thing in the middle of this giant animation. And it comes to your doorstep, not very nicely so, as we do have these
this is
3
what
item
happens when you let a
now.
minion. When you miss enough last hits on minions, you give them to 1 minion. This is what you get. Like
I'm still waiting for the melee versus caster conversation.
Yes.
Coming up here.
I'm trying to remember who wins in a 1v1. I think
Is it a
melee
canon
beats
meta?
Caster. Well, I think canon is always in meta at that point. I think I was a bit OP. Maybe I have to ban that one out.
We
That's
got
a
the
big
engage
engage
there. They do find a nice little pick, and the Wombo combo again comes alive for FPX. They are down, but they are not out, and that's been consistently the case in this series. They will not stop fighting.
Okay, so some ink left on the paper still. FPX find themselves a clutch kind of saving play at that point. Xiaoshu not going to take any large fights from Lily beyond that point. Has himself 3 items, but he wasn't in that fight. And you can see how quick the FPX engage can come in with the likes of that cask. It's a little bit longer engage in terms of its time span from Rare Atom. And now with that Baron spawning up in the next 10 seconds and no Paranoia off cooldown, now might be some danger moments for Rare Atom. This could be a Baron start from FPX.
Keeping up this momentum, they can at least buy a lot of time here if they get this Baron. Gonna bring Carib from behind. No jungler for
Strive has ult
RA.
and flash.
That is really big, and Xiaoshu going in now as well. Trying to find the big pop blossom on all 5 members! And it's a 2v5 that RA take all day! Well, FPX do get the Baron buff, and LWX picks off Xiaoshu. It's a TP now coming through, but he does have the empowered back. They're looking for Xiaohu here. Feather has made it, but there's 2 of him, and he's on the backside. The TP's not fast enough, and Luyen shuts him down. RA will look to push up the gut and end FPX's game.
It was a tragedy all along for FPX. This one's going to end right here. Rare Atom finding their first series victory. Just got to find the minions to shuttle into that Nexus.
Got 10 seconds on Hacker. They are hesitant. They do have the
Really?
Baron buff,
No.
even though, but the Infernum is just too much to handle here. And maybe the 4.5 item spike for LWX. They'd rather close this game out cleanly with the Dragon Soul.
I was so sure that time with the top wave they could have looked for something. Maybe with the Moonlight Vigil coming up, maybe before they could take down the Nexus, they were a little bit worried, especially with that many items onto LWX, who is quietly, maybe slightly louder after a couple of plays like this, found himself at 8 kills, despite himself being in a difficult competition to survive. This was a really dangerous Baron, even with the numbers advantage. We have seen so much work being done by Strive on this Nico. It's been first pick from both games, and he's really made the most of it. Xiaoshu not quite able to close down LWX, and with Spear of Shojin, you get a lot of extra cooldown reduction, a lot of extra ability haste. It's slightly less on immobilizing abilities though, so he couldn't get himself another Counter-Strike to keep himself alive. Sees himself down at that point. Luckily, there's a cleanup which comes out from the rest of Rare Atom to at least stop the Baron buff, having huge value from FPX.
For like 0.2 seconds, Xiaohu's like, wait, Nautilus was behind me. Like that's at least my reaction there. He got the double Nautilus there. And it was the close it from RA, right? Like not letting FPX get away with a lot of this stuff. And even though FPX are fighting now within almost 2.5k gold, it's a huge comeback for them. And it's starting to beg the question of how does this team composition as 5-on-5 pressure RA now if Luyen can't get in?
Good question, because of course, a lot of those fights, we've not really seen Xiaoshu present in the 5v5. We've seen him in a couple of isolated plays beyond that point. See a teleport back towards that bottom. Can they just cancel that? Not quite. Okay, so Xiaoshu able to at least respond towards that bot side would have been very dangerous to give themselves another open in here. They would have only had their Nexus turrets to stand behind beyond that point. Of course, Ocean Soul taken as well. It's going to be very hard to shut down Xiaoshu once he gets into these fights now.
And right now, FPX are going to heavily rely on LWX. It is his moment now, almost at full item build for this Aphelios, but it's a place that LWX has known before, time and time again, right? This is why they've kept this experienced bot laner for FPX for so long and building around him. And you're hoping that FPX, at least if you're an FPX fan, can utilize this competition well. Find picks with Hacker and Care and shut it down with LWX.
This really is probably on LWX to find that extended DPS. Shallow, who's done a decent job of getting some burst onto Assume. Assume has had a pretty difficult series, actually, particularly in this game too. First game was an easier time of it on that Zyre into the late game. Even then, in the early game, had some deficits to come back against, particularly when LWX got himself a lot of that plate gold. But still, FPX, they're not that far behind in gold, actually, after this Baron's been taken. Where they're happy to chill, not give themselves openings for that paranoia to potentially catch them out.
And it's such a lull state right now where you're just having FPX finishing items, right? They just finished 3 total items. LWX got the Bloodthirster last item, and then we just saw Hacker and Chala who complete theirs as well. As there is some fight left in this Phoenix. Although a Death's Dance does come through for Xiaoshu, we will not have any objectives for teams to really fight around, and that's where RA want to pick them apart.
But a lot of this comes from actually a point which you just made about, well, actually, how does the 5v5 go if Leon can't quite get into the fight? Well, if FPX then say, you have to go into 5 people, he doesn't really feel that great pulling the trigger. Leon still going to walk forwards, doesn't have himself something like a GA, has himself a couple of tank items to keep himself as healthy as possible. But again, I don't think Leon's going to be particularly happy on the engage. You can see that's why RA very tentative about the way that they're approaching what potentially could be a game-ending play.
Yeah, but if they find that big engage, if they get the little Strive minion in the middle of 5 members again, I think it's going to go one way or the other. I think RA themselves have been playing off this the last couple fights. They get big flanks from Xiaoshu. They are setting up the fights very well. But again, like you're saying, if they just get the question dropped on their doorstep of, hey, can you fight a 5v5 straight up? The answer is going to be a little bit more questionable, and FPX are just buying a lot of time here.
They are, and what that means is that it's probably best case scenario for them in this late game where they can force one big fight where they have double GAs up, they'll have themselves a stopwatch on Care as well. They have a lot of kind of disposable utility, one-time only stuff which they can use for what potentially could end the game and bring themselves to a game 3 in this series. If it happens around that Elder, it'll happen in the next 1.5 minutes. Baron going to be on the table as well. Of course, that's been a big actor on its own in this second game.
And we just saw LWX trade out for a Lord Doms as well, and we're still waiting on a final item for Assume. So some power differential coming through here into the next fight where we have Baron spawning in about 5 seconds, but more importantly, an Elder Dragon in 1 minute and 10.
So, Xiaoshu in the spot side, Shallow who has that teleport but can't really wave clear and still be in a teleport safe distance away from a counter-strike. So Rare Atom, they have themselves the advantage on at least starting an objective at this point.
They're going
in. Engage.
They're going to get the catch out here. The Everfrost plus the Moonlight Vigil, but Luyen, he's trying to find LWX. He's just too tanky. Luyen didn't have that way in. Everybody's going in one at a time for RA. They're trying to find the backline access from Hacker, and now Assume stepping up. Xiaoshu has been so big here, and Assume survives on the side. It's a one catch. No, he's dead! The big pop-off Gale Force from LWX, and Luyen still has no way into this fight. FPX take a big one.
That is absolutely huge. The Ocean Soul makes the initial engage a little scuffed from FPX. Assume survives longer than I think they expected him to, but LWX gets to fight. We said that was the key difference between the winning and lost flights from FPX in this game. Now FPX going to get themselves onto that Baron. Elder is spawning right now, though. It's a potential of a
Paranoia is available. He's going to pop it. They got the Spirit Rush already used by Care. Xiaoshu's trying to find a big counter strike. Lian buying a lot of time. Counter-Strike not going to connect on anybody. Big engage from Feather, but look at the combo coming out from FPX. You don't have the damage just yet, but now FPX are falling off, and the GA is going to be popped from LWX. This is a scrappy one, but a Pop Blossom makes the difference again! And Strive flexes all over FPX!
Adam just won this series without an AD carry in the final fight, styling eventually on FPX.
It just takes one. That little minion is your undoing every time. And it wasn't even a minion that time. It's just a Pop Blossom in the middle of your team. The amount of multi-man combos that RA have landed. It got a little bit sketchy. It got a little bit sweaty. But RA will claim their first series win of the summer split in the LPL. And what a way to do it over FPX.
Took them maybe longer than they would have hoped in that second game. Did feel like after that first Baron went down in that second game, we were going to see a rerun of what happened in that game one. But still, a win is a win. First on the board for Atom. In spring, they started off on a bit of an undefeated streak at the very start. I think they went up to about 4-0 before they lost themselves that first series, but then couldn't really keep themselves that same run of form. Didn't find themselves into that playoffs. It's a bit early to be talking about anything about that, but Rare Adam finding themselves a win does at least start to settle some of those nerves, get themselves into this new split. Of course, their first split without that veteran top laner Cube for the organization.